This is your Neepawa Town Council Debrief for the February the 15th, 2022 meeting. The debrief will take you through the key issues being discussed by Council and provide a bit more information on what they mean for the town. Several of the items before Council this week were follow-ups to previous issues or routine business. The Finance Committee has had preliminary budget discussions and expects to have a first reading of the budget before Council soon so that public discussion can take place. Snow continues to pile up around town, particularly at corners along roads that are the responsibility of the provincial government. In the interest of public safety, town staff may reduce those snow accumulations on their own. Manager of Operations Denise Kay also reports that the ongoing transportation of riprap, or rubble and broken stone, that is one of the first steps to rebuilding Park Lake, is about 75% complete. One piece of unfinished business from the previous meeting was a tabled motion on a zoning amendment. Council brings that back to the floor for discussion, and a motion that was not unanimous.
So just to go back to what we did at last meeting, so we had a motion that was brought forward. It was moved by Councillor Nadeau and seconded by Councillor Pudlow. And I'm just going to read it again so it reminds everybody what that was about. Be it resolved that we approve variation application V-05-2021 Willing Chin on behalf of GC Basanta, respecting the lots 20 and 21, block 81, plan 256 at 270 Main Street East to allow for the intensification of the residential use from the current RT residential 2-unit zone to the proposed RM1 residential multi-use zone, as well as approving a side yard setback reduction for both side yards from the required 10 feet to the proposed 9 feet each. These variances to allow for the construction of a 2-story, 4-unit residential dwelling with 2 units on the main floor and 2 units on the second floor. Okay, so I'm opening it up again for any discussion on, yes, Councilor Barrett.
Well, I'd like to move for an amendment on this. We spent a lot of time discussing it last council meeting, and since then many of us have gone on site and talked to staff, and I would like to move that it further be resolved that the property owner be required as an amendment to cover the cost of installing water and sewage of the property based on the minimums established under clause 36 of bylaw 3204-21. However, should the cost exceed the minimums, the owner shall be responsible for the actual cost of installations. I would move that.
Okay, so I would need a seconder then. Seconded by Councilor Nadeau. All in favor? Carried. So now we're back to discussing that and the original, what we tabled. Okay, so these two, so what Councilor Parrott just added and what we had from the last meeting will now be, so now we're discussing both of them. So do we have anyone that wants to speak to it? Yeah.
I think for myself, I was a little unsure, so I thought, well, this would be a similar setup to other fourplexes that we have up north end of Mountain, and so I went down there and started looking around, and I guess I would have to say it's very similar in setup, although the area is a little tighter down here just off of Main. It's still the same kind of setup, and it still falls within the variations that Jeff gave us. So I don't know. I would say for myself that I wouldn't see the dirt all of it.
Okay, and we do have Jeff sitting here if anyone has any questions to ask him again on it. So yeah.
Yeah, I think especially in light of our new census data and showing that the community is 1,000 people larger.
Yeah.
This is something that us as a council are going to have to look at, is looking at increasing some population density in some neighborhoods. It definitely does fit within the area. We do have a similar fourplex that was built 3 blocks down. We gave variations for its approval, and as a council, I think if we want to see legal housing that is grown to this format and size, which has always been a conversation that's been around the table, not people just refurnishing basements and increasing density without our knowledge. I mean, right now we've got someone here who's playing by the rules, we're not looking for any parking variations or anything like that. So, you know, on the 1 foot difference there, you know, and I'll speak to myself as someone who's done some development in the community. I mean, you know, these are not requests that are really far out from what we've seen a lot of the variations that we've approved, so.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Anybody else? So we all understand that we're voting on two separate motions here at the same,
Say as an amended resolution.
as an amended resolution, okay? And I don't need to read this all again, right?
Well, it's up.
Yeah, everybody understands what we're voting on? Okay, so then I can just move forward with call for the vote, so all in favor? Opposed? Okay.
Another item that returns for discussion this week is the new bylaw regarding land grading and draining. Several more hypothetical situations were posed by council to test the parameters of the guidelines. Then the bylaw went forward for its second and third readings, which, unlike the first reading, are permitted to and usually do take place at the same meeting.
Okay, we're back to our bylaw that we gave first reading to at the last meeting. Bylaw number 32110-22, regulating lot grading and drainage. I know we had some discussion at the table last time. Councilor Gerard had some questions, I had some questions. Jeff's here tonight. If there's anything else anybody wants to ask before we move forward with the second and third reading. If not, Councilor Harrod.
How comfortable are you with this bylaw, being the one who will be enforcing it?
And we want the truth.
I'm actually quite comfortable with it right now. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit of, we might have some learning curves on it, mostly just because of some of the grades that were chosen were mostly just made up as scenarios, and so we may have to address it and alter it once we've applied it. But in theory, I've to some degree been applying this bylaw since we've originally drafted it, and it's relatively worked, I feel so.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, right, that you've been applying it even before this bylaw is actually.
I guess it's not applying the bylaw, applying its intent.
Yeah, right, yeah, exactly, yeah, sorry, no budget overstep, okay. Okay. Yes, Councilor Gerard.
I love this document. Because drainage, like I said, drainage is a very contentious issue. And I'm glad that we're actually putting forward a working, governing piece of paper forward in the community. I think it's real progress. I'm going to go back to some of my example areas that I was asking on last week, so probably the last council meeting. So I'd like to go back to, let's say, former Eastview site, okay? So we've got a plan as a council that would create up to 17 lots.
6 and then another 11.
Yes, so 17 net lots out there. So as we go in and we apply our drainage plan to a new development within our community here, and we know the grades that exist there. Everyone can see it plain as day. So take the house starting at the top of the hill, down to the next one, down to the next one, down to the next one, right till we get to the bottom. And we take a look at how we progressively move that water. Now we have to try to facilitate water getting to the street in that case. And then we get to the bottom, and then we have, obviously as a community, we have to develop a storm plan that gets water off of that street and away from those homes. Now, on side of those yards and those grades that are there, I'm going to come back to retaining walls, because that's the one. I mean, because a retaining wall is a significant expense in the development of a lot. You know, we can be talking $5,000, $12,000, $15,000 to put a retaining wall in. So, person who gets the house on the top of the hill, are they the one who's responsible for the retaining wall, or is it the person below? Or is there any risk in there where we could see someone coming into buying a lot that they could be stuck having to pay for 2 retaining walls? Because we need to know that can't happen, because all of a sudden a $45,000 lot could instantly become a, well, if we're talking another 25,000, right, like we're talking 75, 70,000. That's my only concern on this, is how we manage that. So, first house is built, right here, is that person responsible for a retaining wall to protect that next property? Or is that person who builds the next property responsible for that one?
So we're talking, I guess, I mean, we don't know where they're gonna buy it, if we're looking at top, if, say, the individual buys the very top lot.
Yep.
What we're asking. So the original plan is to grade the lot to the street.
Yep.
The bylaw will outline if the parching, or basically the slope away from the property to the edge is at 4% grade.
Yep.
If they're able to maintain that 4% grade to their property edge, and it works out to 0, ground level, no retaining wall, they would still have to maintain a required swale or something that any residual water would be caught and taken to the street. If they maintain that 4% grade and there's a 3-foot drop to the next lot, that will determine retaining wall or landscape slope accordingly, right? If they have enough land available to, retaining wall would be a necessity if it was impacting structure, where it was holding up either a portion of earth or a portion of the structure of the building. If they're able to maintain structural integrity and the slope accordingly to a swale, then they wouldn't need one.
So, okay, but then let's say the person building below,
Yep.
now, how do they get that 4% grade if they've got a more aggressive grade coming in towards their property?
Well, they wouldn't, because they'd be still starting at 0 on theirs.
Okay, we're starting from 0 from their point, not from their edge of lot.
Foundation.
It would be from foundation. That, like I said, these are some of the questions I have. Like a prime example, like I look at right now, is I take a look at what we see going on Adelaide, right? And I see a house, I see a lot with a very aggressive grade,
Right.
off to the side, facing to the east. Is that person responsible for a retaining wall? Not right now, right?
So they were required as well for some geo work there.
Yeah.
I know it's complicated, and I'm sorry I'm being a stickler on this,
No,
but I mean.
I'm still gonna stand with the statement that there could be a potential where an individual purchases a lot, and depending on what they build, how they build it, they may impact both sides.
Mhm.
I do feel that's a possibility, so I can't say no.
They buy on a hilltop.
That's right.
Right.
So, and I think that individual buying that lot would have to either address their building, because if their building is affecting the drainage and is affecting the neighboring properties that much, well, they either have to be prepared to support the neighboring properties and protect the neighboring properties, or they alter their build plan so they don't have to do it. Would be, that's my feel on it.
Yeah, so like, you know, in that case there where it's the old scenario, like uphill both ways, right? I mean, I can see that where that, you know, that situation shows up, but, you know, it used to be that what was kind of applied was, well, the house above has to take care of the swale, and that's who's responsible for it all the way, and that's how it works its way down the street. So if we look at a neighborhood building progressively like that, right? You know what I mean? If we were to apply that on that east view land.
Yeah.
So top house has to build a swale. That means the next house here inherits that swale on the one side and has to maintain, he can't go interfere and dig that or manipulate it for his own landscaping purposes.
But if he did,
Yeah.
we would have to protect that.
Yeah. And then, so then he's gonna be responsible for the swale now on the east side of his property to where the next one is coming, correct? Because we already know the grade of that hill, like, we
Yes.
know we're setting this neighborhood up that way.
Well, 10% if I've figured it right.
Yeah, like, we know that neighborhood's setting up that way right
Yeah.
now. So I mean, I'm just trying to apply it
Yeah.
in an area where we've got 17 subdivided lots ready to go. I'm just trying to think about how we protect that, and how we can sell those lots, because if we can't give those people buying those lots some cost surety as well, right? That's the thing, because let's face it, lots are precious in this community, but we can't get biters on those ones, and I want to make sure that that's not a barrier to sale. That's the only reason I'm questioning some of this with this
Just for
particular
clarity
matter.
though, the back 11 are not even finished at subdivision stage, so I don't want the community thinking we haven't been able to sell any. They're
Yeah.
not, the back 11 are not for
No,
sale.
yeah, I should say, I should correct that, but I mean, we have a plan in place, right? And we've got 4 lots remaining, I think they're for sale. Three, sorry, yeah.
Three, yeah.
But, so the next 3 lots, we know the person above has to build a swale on the east side of their
Well, I
property.
guess it would also depend. Jeff and I talked about this extensively, case by case, if we're not even sure what people are going to build. Hence, if you go to 18E in the bylaw, it gives Jeff the ability to basically look at what's going on there. The designated officer reserves the right to alter the requirement 18D for a retaining wall that might be possible if they are of the opinion that the property owner can remain in compliance with the bylaw by landscaping in such a manner to direct the water to a swale. Such determination of the designated officer shall be based on site conditions, the current and future development of the general area, any impact to the structure, any potential impact on neighboring properties, and any other conditions deemed reasonable to make that determination. And I think, I have full faith. I understand what you're saying, but I think Jeff feels quite comfortable that case by case, like we can't put the criteria in here. It's not, we can't make a chart and say this is what it's going to be. We'll have to just deal case by case. So we will definitely look at that hill. I know we've talked about it as well.
Just as a plan, as we try to market these lots, as we market those lots, that funds the development of the remaining 11 in behind, or, to get that.
Well, we can
subdivision.
talk, is there something we could do more interior to even the second phase of the development that would provide that avenue for the direction of the water? We don't know that. We have hashed that over, but because we haven't concluded the subdivision yet, we haven't really launched into any final discussion on that. So.
That's fair. Like I said, I'm just trying to apply the bylaw.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm
You'll be in on those discussions, I'm sure.
I'm just trying to apply right now. And if we can test it at this table as opposed to in the public, I think that's better.
I very much agree with that.
And at the end of the day, we'll have a bylaw to go back to and look at, which we don't have now.
And the same thing with individual buying it, I mean, they could run that scenario. They could, buying the property, hopefully they're advised of at the point of sale that, there is this plan in place, and then, they could review the requirements, review the lot, and then determine what suits the lot best is for the construction too, right? Well,
Currently, it's very easy for us right now within the community because those lots are only for sale through the town office per se, so we can understand that and not
We kind of
make
control
any, we understand the rules of how it's going to get applied to those lots, but, going forward, like I said, just, as other developments happen, even such things as just taking out the permit, right, as far as the drainage goes now, that you have to take out that permit, and then the $500 deposit that has to go on it until that project is done and signed. I mean, these are all things that can be seen as some people can see them as a barrier to development. I think they're an opportunity to protect the community, is what I see, but. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Darryl. Anybody else? Okay, if nothing else, we are going to move forward with the second and third reading, so.
CAO Colleen Sanchishan discusses our annual report to the Manitoba Water Services Board, which outlines 5 development priorities in the Neepawa area. Many of these have come up at previous meetings related either to developments or to the recent expansion of our water and wastewater system.
Okay, Colleen, Water Services.
Do you have your list, or you want me to?
No, I don't have that.
So this is an annual resolution that we send into the Water Services Board as part of their 5-year capital planning. They'd like to get updated on where we are at with our request that they would possibly partner with us and assist us with growth of the community. So our 5 things that we put on our list, and some of them you've seen them year after year after year, but clearly some get bumped off depending on, if we can prolong it, or others get put on depending on whether it has to happen more quickly. So the first one is our water tower repair and maintenance. That's been on the slate for a significant amount of time, but I think we're getting pretty close to, once our reservoir is done, being able to have some downtime over there and get the repair done. The addition of a third raw water well site location. As you know, we also in a previous meeting approved a water supply study, partnering with Manitoba Water Services Board to be able to get that study completed, to understand where we need to go with that. That does not mean we're drawing more water from the aquifer. It just means it gives us a better avenue of making sure we can produce water and bring it into the plant, and we have the ability to take one of our well sites offline if we need to. We were, once again, a meter pit at the High Life Foods to get a better handle on the water use over there. Highway 16 water main extension, and the last one, Mill Street lift station relocation. And we all know what happened in the flood in 2020 with the Mill Street lift being under compromise. We've always understood that part of our project should relocate that, and of course I should have maybe mentioned a little earlier, other than mitigation and preparedness money, that would also see that happen as part of those money. Clearly not a sufficient amount of money to make that happen, but any contribution towards that and some partnering by Water Service Board, should that happen, would be greatly appreciated. So, and I just maybe can't speak to the Highway 16 water main extension as well.
I just had some low flow numbers there, so that's why I was meeting with the engineers to see the flow data.
A new item on the agenda this week was asset management. This is a new requirement for municipalities across Canada so that they more closely model the business world in terms of tracking the life cycle of assets, and has been a huge undertaking for town staff in all areas. The plan, which Council has decided to put into a bylaw, is a work in progress, and we can expect many additions and changes to it over the next number of years.
Okay, asset management.
I might ask Denise to join in on this one. So we all know for the last number of years there's been a requirement for municipalities in Manitoba and Canada for that matter to delve deeper into how they manage their assets. The idea being more closely modeling what you would see in an actual business world and looking at making sure you're tracking the life cycle costs of your assets and looking at depreciation, getting the best value of the money. The importance of this over the last few years, as much as we haven't had our feet in the fire necessarily, we haven't been given a deadline to have it complete, but everybody's encouraged to work toward getting this done. We did receive last year around $50,000 from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to help us with our asset management planning, tracking of data, gathering of inventory. We have done significant work in-house. We did not delve out to an outside company to do this. Staff have been busy with, when we went out and actually went house to house and, for example, we took a look at the meters in there and we started tracking what we have, what the lines were made of, looking at all of our data. So you have a document in front of you. It's actually our asset management plan and our levels of service policy. Will it need to be amended? Absolutely. We're kind of new at this, so we are doing it in-house. We feel we don't need any special software of any sort other than what we could utilize already, in our wheelhouse. And so the document you have in front of you was put together mostly by Denise, our manager of operations in Dallas, who works very closely with Denise, and then of course staff input from an inventory perspective and all the other things. And so we're asking for your approval tonight, so you'll be part of the filing for the grant monies of the $50,000. It kind of premises a little further in your agenda. You're going to see a bylaw. We decided rather than just complete a plan, we would do an overarching bylaw to support the fact we are going to have a capital management plan. And you probably, it would make more sense to give first reading of the bylaw first and then do the policy and whatnot, but it's the same way. What's the difference whether one's 5 minutes ahead of the other, really? It's going to be a work in progress over the next number of years, and as we gather our data, the assumption is, and as we apply for grants, for example, say you want to apply for federal grants or provincial grants, the idea is if you're managing your assets properly, you will get better leverage of getting those approved, because you are a community showing that you understand what you have for your infrastructure. You know if it's old, you know when it needs to be replaced, and you start putting it into a costing cycle that requires replacement and allows you to be successful, I guess, as much as we are now. We'll even be more successful with the data that we're going to understand. So unless Denise, you want to add a little bit to that?
No, that's a pretty good summary. Essentially, we're trying to remove data out of everyone's head that either I have or Chris has, or some of our older employees, and get it down for everyone to see in a spreadsheet so they understand it properly. As Colleen noted, it is pretty much a living document, maybe the best way to describe it right now. There will be obviously amending it repeatedly throughout the process. Once we acquire more data, keep filling it in and filling in those blank spots. You know, it's quite lengthy. We went in on quite a few spreadsheets. And again, we'll be building that, so it probably will get bigger yet as time goes on.
Sounds like a very ambitious project.
Always a lot of fun.
Okay, it wasn't the word I was thinking of.
How many culverts do we have?
Refer to the spreadsheet, sir.
10 kilometers of sidewalk is the one that I remember. It's very involved.
It is.
I guess for the public's knowledge too, it doesn't necessarily mean when we replace assets, it doesn't mean the oldest gets replaced first either. This particular analysis of all your assets would mean that whatever is in need the most gets replaced first. So it could be a 10-year-old street, it could be a 20-year-old street. Maybe not that 70-year-old street. It's all based on use and the quality and condition of the asset. And once you've categorized it and given it a condition assessment, then that's how you start basing your budget and bumping things into priorities.
I guess, Councilor Gordon.
Yeah, I have a question. I read through it, and it's extensive. It's really impressive. And I'm a big believer in data. I mean, how do you manage that you don't have data, right? So, I mean, I think it's fantastic. I noticed here as we were going through under that section, there become responsibilities of administration and responsibilities of council that are going to show up in this bylaw as well. And one of them was council training on asset management. Is that something that we're going to see short term? Is that something, and how does that work? Are we going to see these items start to show up on budget lines after we've just had a very positive thing, as we start looking at, asset management? Like I noticed there, because that now has to be framed in our conversation too, and it's saying that council will be trained in asset management. So as us as councillors, if we pass this, which I assume we will, but I mean, that is something that you are saying that you're taking on. And then, I guess, have we given any thoughts as to where this will fall under? Is it a budget item? Is it going to be those good folks that sit on public works who now have to take that over as far as those committees? Have we given any more thoughts to how this goes forward?
I'm going to be honest, I think we've been already practicing a lot of that. If I can allude to various things which, like there was a little pushback at times. When you talk about, everybody wanting to put lipstick on that pig and pave that street, you've often heard Denise or us speak about you have to look at what you have under the street because you're throwing money away if you do. So we've been practicing that for years.
Oh, yes.
Now it's getting a better understanding now because we have data. We can actually show you, this street's in fair condition, this one's been a condition assessment of fair or whatever the case. And we can look at every year, we can actually slot them into a year and say, we're looking at doing 3 streets this year and this is the ones they are, based on being in a poor condition. Yes, everybody will have to have some involvement, more from the government's perspective, I guess, from the aspect of councillor. But now you're going to have some data to show you what we've always seen and known here. And I think even surprisingly enough for us to actually see it on paper ourselves rather than just know it's in your heads is quite a different change, really.
No, like I said, I'm in favor of it. I noticed as you go through and you actually read the document, it was interesting to see that there was the council expectations on asset management too, which I thought was good to see.
So it's a living document. If it needs to be edited, we'll edit it as many times as we need to.
Other items before council this week included miscellaneous correspondence, a potential new business opportunity, the forthcoming installation of streetlights throughout the former CN property commercial area, and a congratulations to Neepawa Titans manager Ken Pearson on coaching his 1,000th game in the NJHL. You can view end-to-end coverage of the town council meeting elsewhere in the NACTV schedule, including immediately following this. We welcome your feedback on this program, and if you have questions or items that you'd like to see clarified or discussed, you can reach us at 204-476-2639 or by email at nactvnews@gmail.com. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you next time.